Good morning and welcome to Your Vote Counts. I'm Scott Mitchell, Senator Rosino, Jason Dunnington. It was deadline week. We'll get to that in just a second. But the fact is that the governor has this energy abundance idea with more and everything, data centers, all of that. The legislation's not matching up, it appears, with what the governor's agenda is, and a bunch of it out there.
Yeah, there's a bunch of energy bills that passed this week. I think there were 8 that went from the House over the Senate, and a similar number passing from the Senate to the House. Everything, though, that's dealing with like setbacks on wind, setbacks on solar, setbacks on battery storage, some natural gas bills, the behind the meter legislation, which is one of the few energy bills that passed unanimously out of the Senate and unanimously out of the House. But it's just kind of a jumble right now. A lot of stuff that looks like it's a little bit anti-energy, and then some stuff that's trying to be pro-energy, especially pro-natural gas, which we can expect here in a state like Oklahoma that swims on natural gas below our feet. But really need to get that energy message tightened up so that we're sending the right message to the business community, especially when it's speed to market issues.
All right, we're competing against Texas. We're competing against Florida. Democrat governors in the Northeast are going, send us your gas. The governor wants all of the above and more of it, and it just appears like that message is not, at least in the House of Representatives.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of energy issues, and we're an energy state, so we're trying to tap into everything. My colleague just mentioned behind the meter. That is one that I really think can get some traction. It is good for Oklahoma. It is good for economic development. And what it does is it relieves the pressure on the grid. It lets people, businesses especially, if they can produce their own energy, then it's not on the consumer. And I always worry about the rates on the consumer and whether or not we're taking care of our energy costs to keep them low so that the people of Oklahoma aren't the ones having to carry the bill.
Okay, we mentioned it was deadline week. If I had $1 for every time I've heard somebody in the media this week say this bill's dead for this session, here's the, it's never dead, okay? And I just want to take a moment for media and the public to understand that there are ways that bills that don't make the deadline, a variety of ways, these can come back to life like zombies.
Yeah, there's several ways that can happen. You'll see a lot of times in a JCAB, it'll come back and all of a sudden you'll think, well, this was already heard and defeated and why are we hearing it again? You can also hear bills, the Speaker and the Pro Tem, they have leadership bills that they can resurrect at any time during session. Some of the bills that may die, the titles may be somewhere and somebody wants to pull that and they can use a title. So to your point, Scott, there is never a bill dead until we adjourn and sine die at the end of the year. So I would be cautious about saying bills are dead because they never truly are.
Yes, sine die is the exact word, but you've seen this for a long time. The public needs to understand about how the process works, and saying something's dead, that's just not right.
Yeah, well, process is important. Look, we started with like 3,600 bills, and we've now whittled that down probably to a little bit less than 600 that have passed from Senate chamber to House and House over to Senate. But as my colleague said, there's a JCAB, that's the Joint Appropriations Committee. That means any bill that has a fiscal impact could go into one of those committees and you could resurrect a new bill. It would have to be heard in both the appropriations in the Senate and in the House before it could go to a signature for the governor. But then there's Conference Committee, which we'll talk about when we get to May. Conference Committee is another way that you can bring bills into it. But the process is important, and I think we try to do on this show as best we can to educate the public on what that looks like.
We're going to get us one of those NFL red replay flags on the flag every time we hear that it's dead for the session, because it's not. When we come back, we're going to be talking about Signalgate.